So it's really great. I just have to let you know, I've got another activity at 9:30, at the half hour. So we'll just end on time. That'll be great. But it's a real honor to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we totally understand. We'll make sure we wrap up exactly at 12:30. So if you're ready, we can just get started.
Let's go.
So what was your first job and how old were you and and how did you get it?
My very, very first job that paid was actually as an umpire. And I worked in the summers umpiring different leagues. So it was mostly softball, but I did some baseball as well. And I really liked it. One, you had to know a lot of information. So you had to know the rules and you had to make decisions right on the spot. And I really enjoyed that.
That's really cool. Were you a softball player yourself?
Oh, yeah, I did. I like to play football as well.
That's great. That's a very fitting first job. Did you have any challenges in terms of when you were first looking for a job, especially when you were so young? And how'd you overcome
Yeah,
these challenges?
knowing the rules is how I overcame the challenge and being really good. I got such a great reputation that they actually wanted me to referee or umpire boys baseball as well. And I was really honored during a softball tournament. They wanted me to do the home plate umpiring in a softball tournament, and I was by far the youngest umpire. So it was really quite an honor. And I think it's because I really knew the rules and I was very decisive and I, made those calls quickly and on the spot. So I think that really taught me knowing the rules and using your voice and being decisive were really big advantages.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because you're going to be the one calling all the shots there. So it really,
Yeah,
really matters.
yeah.
Um, and so obviously you've had a really diverse background, even in tech and business and with the Girl Scouts. So what skills would you say you learned in your first job that really set the tone for the rest of your career and you think you could still apply today?
Well, so, I think being an umpire, I really learned the importance of, being making the decisions, knowing the rules, obviously being fair, but then also being in engineering and then getting into working at NASA and then technology companies, my analytical skills, my problem solving skills, those things really help me. And what I've learned is, a systems thinking, a possibility thinking, a problem solving, those kind of skills transfer into a variety of different industries. And I'm really grateful for that.
And it's one of those things where it's like you're going to take it with you no matter where you end up. So it kind
Yeah,
of just continues to emphasize why it's so important to at least get exposure to those skills early
you
on.
bet.
And so what exactly led you back to your roots with the Girl Scouts after taking such I guess you'd say, a lot of different activities on throughout your career?
So I was a tech exec and I was working in Austin, Texas, and me and three individuals started a company. And then we sold it and I suddenly had a lot more options and I could have gone back into technology, but I also became aware of a lot of disparities in terms of healthcare and education. So I decided to use my analytical and problem solving skills there in ways that could scale. Because I think there are wonderful educators and healthcare professionals that are really good at the one-on-one or the one-on-few. But when the situation becomes really challenging, when it's, big, big numbers, and that's something I can do. I know how to scale. And so bringing that kind of approach to some disparities in terms of, toothbrushes, eyeglasses, books, even access to information. We distributed over 250,000 books,
Wow.
started more than 10,000 home libraries. Over 11,000 kids got glasses that didn't have them before. So really taking a systems engineering problem solving approach in a way that scaled efficiently and affordably was kind of something that was a hallmark of my approach. That got me to the White House working with President Obama, especially focusing on education, but also I was really focused on early childhood. And during that time, I had this call from somebody from Stanford who was doing research, and they said I was one of the first and one of the few Hispanics, male or female, to have gotten their graduate engineering degree from Stanford. And when they interviewed me, they kept asking me, why did I get my interest in science and math, especially at an early age? And what I learned was, oh, wow, the aha moment was when I was in Girl Scouts and earned my science badge, and my troop leader helped me understand, about the planets and space, and that developed that lifelong interest. And so then I said, oh my gosh, I always bought Girl Scout cookies, but I didn't realize it was such an inflection point in my life. And so at that point, I became more involved, and I was asked to be on the national board. And then afterwards, I was on the national board for 8 years. They asked me to step in as the CEO. And I'm really grateful because I took that systems engineering problem solving approach. And during my tenure, 146 new badges, more than any other time in Girl Scouts history, and outdoors, entrepreneurship, civics, so important, and engineering and STEM. So, great automotive, coding, cybersecurity, data analytics, great badges that really give girls a leg up on life in today's digital world.
I agree 100% on especially just the importance of that early exposure. I think as the world continues to change, technology and engineering and all of these pieces just continue to play a bigger and bigger impact on our lives every day. And so the work that you've done for girls and, helping them have that equitable platform to kind of step on and have equal opportunity or equal access to those opportunities is really setting them up for success for the rest of their lives. So it's really, really amazing. And so with continuing to connect young people to opportunities around them, what career advice would you give to Girl Scouts who could be watching this?
So I am really excited that so many girls got involved in Girl Scouts. You have so many great leadership skills. So, being a go-getter is very important. There's two things that I learned in the cookie program that have helped me my entire life is, one, never walk away from a sale until you've heard no 3 times. So for all of you out there, be persistent. You might hear no, try to figure out how to get to a yes. That is so important. And then the other one was the first person you have to convince that you can do something is yourself. So when you go up and you're like convinced that you're going to be able to make the sale or you can solve a problem, that's the first person you have to convince is yourself. And then you're going to be able to exude that confidence. And then problem solving, resilience, getting and overcoming obstacles and challenges, those things are really important. So for all of you out there, think about what it is you'd like to do and go and say, I can do that. And, be really persistent and resilient until you get that opportunity, and then do your best.
That's extremely valuable advice. And so in your opinion, so why do young people deserve employment?
Oh my gosh, work is actually something that is so important. When you think about athletics or building a muscle, you build the muscles by resilience, persistence. Okay. Work does that as well. Work teaches you how to be with other people, how to accomplish great things together. So I think there are so many important skills that you learn when you're working, and learning how to work at a young age is really important. We started the interview talking about me being an umpire at a very young age. And because I was good at it, I got put into a leadership position above adults at a young age. And so that gave me tremendous confidence that, I could really know something. I could be a really expert in something, and I could be counted on to make those decisions. So, wow, what amazing confidence that gives you as a young person.
And I agree 100%, especially when, we always want to encourage young people to continue exploring new fields. And sometimes those new fields can be intimidating. And so coming in with some sort of foundation of confidence to kind of be like, we're entering the unknown, but we've done something risky and new before. So what's this new challenge? And being that confident.
Absolutely. That's how you gain the experience. And I also love the saying, failure is the first attempt in learning. So if you don't succeed at first, that's okay. You've learned not to do it that way, learn to do it another way. So I think that's the other really valuable skill of going out there and getting a job and applying yourself.
For sure. And that's why my favorite saying has always been brave, not perfect, right? It's like
Mhm.
unafraid to try new things, and we might not get it perfect the first time or ever. But that fear or that fearlessness to continue exploring new things is what helps us continue to learn and grow.
Mhm.
So how have you advocated for yourself throughout your career, especially when working in male dominated fields to get to where you wanted to go?
There's lots of things. One, again, really relying on, being a subject matter expert and having that expertise, and then also not being afraid to use my voice. In technology, you've got to have a little bit more aggressive communication style. And I know that didn't work in an all-female environment like Girl Scouts, but if you didn't interrupt people, if you just didn't keep talking and making your point, you would really get overlooked. And so I had to learn how to, interrupt people. I know that seems really rude, but especially as a young engineer, they're not going to call on you. You've got to get your voice out there, and you've got to learn how to make your point clearly and quickly to really be effective. And so those things really helped me because I realized no one was going to wait around and say, "Oh, well, Sylvia, what do you think?" I mean, that's just not how that engineering technology world works. And so that was really important for me to learn how to use those skills so that I could get my point across and so I could advance. I was also not afraid to take on tough problems and challenges and then solving them. So when people would be like, "Well, that's really hard to do," I'd be like, "Hey, I'll take that one on." And so then I got a reputation for, being able to handle really complex problems and
And
solving
that's
them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's always, as a computer science student in a unequal gender ratio classroom myself, I really resonate with that. And those first experiences where I was in those classrooms and I get, like you said, like didn't know how to necessarily speak up and get my point across. Those really, hit my confidence because I was only in ninth grade at the time. And so um, just kind of, I guess, continuing to put yourself out of your comfort zone and kind of just knowing like your voice matters and what you have to say does contribute something positive. And all of that comes from, again, having confidence from the start of it. But I think it just makes the biggest difference. And it's what helps girls continue to kind of pursue those harder fields and, foster a sense of belonging in them and kind of take up space in those places where sometimes it can be easy to like be pushed aside.
Mhm.
So thank you. That's really, really inspiring for sure. And so what is kind of some of the best advice that you have been given or sorry, what is some of the best advice that you've been given when it comes to searching for a job or even trying to kind of continue to climb up the ladder when it comes to looking for a raise or I guess look for a higher position within somewhere you were working?
Well, first of all, ask for the job and ask for the raise. I have to say, having managed both men and women, I've had less than 10% of the women ever ask me for a raise. They really did expect, I just did the job and I'm going to get rewards. Men come in, even if they haven't deserved it, they come in and ask for the raise and they ask for the job and they ask for the bonus. It's been amazing to me. I think one of the most outrageous examples was when I was working in international and headed up the organization. And this guy, this employee from another division said he wanted to work in that. He had never traveled in the region, didn't speak any other language other than English, didn't even have a passport. But he felt like, yeah, I could do that. And it's like, gosh, you don't have any experience in international work and don't even have a passport. So traveling is going to be a little bit of a problem right away. But to me, that was really interesting because I have other women who were like eminently qualified. And they were like, "I'm not sure I'm qualified for the job." I was like, "Oh my goodness." So that was a situation that happened over and over. And so I would say to them, ask for the job, ask for the raise. And then if you don't get it, ask them why not. And then you have something you can solve for. Because then you've got them to say, well, you didn't get it because of these situations or this issue. Now you've got something to work on. And then when you solve for that, then you deserve that raise or deserve that new promotion.
Yeah, for sure. And your story kind of inspired a similar like memory of mine, triggered a memory of mine, where we were in our computer science class and all of us were presenting apps that we'd been working on all semester. And so the girls had when they were presenting their apps, they'd clearly gone above and beyond. They'd done research on their own to look up topics and learn how to code pieces that we hadn't covered in class. But the way they were presenting their apps was just very like, this is what I've done, kind of just going through the features one by one. But when the boys were presenting their apps, which arguably had less, you could say, like outside features that hadn't been covered in class, maybe hadn't done as much when it comes to going above and beyond, the way they projected what they had done was far greater. And so it almost seemed like it was starting to equal out a little. And so that was just something that I noticed in the way that sometimes just the way you go about presenting yourself or selling yourself, sometimes there's a disparity in the amount that actually happens between the two. So do you have any
Right.
advice when it comes to helping us, start to brag about ourselves more and sell ourselves more for those that struggle?
So one of the things that I would really encourage you is to really set the baseline when you're presenting. It's like, this is what the situation was, and here's what actually we've delivered. And so instead of just getting to the solution, really begin to set the context so that your solution really does, merit additional consideration. But a lot of times I don't see women doing that. They just like, well, I did it, I solved it. And then guys are like, before, like I tell you about how it ended, let me just tell you what I had to deal with, right? So then you get into their story and then you're like, oh my gosh, you've done so much. Where the women did 10 times as much, but they don't explain that. They're just like, I solved the problem. It's like, okay, you solved it, right? But you don't explain it. So set the context. This is what was the expectation. This was the challenge. And then these are all the things that we did to solve it. And then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm involved in it. And when you do it that way, it's not like, oh my God, I'm so great. Look at what I did. And I think that's what women are afraid of. We're afraid of that we're going to be like somehow, extolling ourselves above our peers, but rather focus on what you've actually done in a way that has context. And then that kind of helps resolve that situation.
That's really, really great advice, and advice I'll be taking myself for sure.
Yeah.
So obviously you're very, very accomplished. Do you have any specific memory where, or I guess you could say a moment during your career that was particularly meaningful that you felt like had more impact on yourself, that you felt like you were making a real impact on other people's lives?
There was one where I wanted to head up Latin American sales. And I remember being in a hotel in Caracas, Venezuela, and there was going to be an entire, you know, conference room filled with people from all over Latin America that had flown to meet me and to hear what I was going to say. And I would have to talk about, enterprise networking in Spanish. And I remember laying on the bed and said, okay, I wanted this and I got it, but now I have to deliver. So it was that moment of realizing, you want goals, but you also have to deliver on them. I did, and I did very well. But that was one moment where it was like, okay, wow, you've wanted this, now you got to step it up to the plate and really hit it. And then another one was much later in my career when I was on the White House. I was a White House commissioner. And I was really focused on early childhood because, as I like to say, you can't have higher ed without lower ed. And so it's very important to get kids started off. And there are so many kids in the United States that speak another language at home. And when they enter programs like Head Starts, you would only get federal funding if the curriculum was in English. So you couldn't build on a child's native language to learn English. And that's actually the fastest and best way to learn another language is anchor the home language and then build on that, strengthen that, and then you learn English even faster. So I worked really hard and I was very proud that we were able to change that policy so that federal funds could be used for dual language curriculum. And that affects millions of kids' lives. And that was a big problem to be solved. It took a lot of work to get through the bureaucracy, but we made it happen.
That's really, really amazing, especially because that is truly the foundation when it comes to setting up students for success when it comes to
Mhm.
education. Um, that's amazing. Do you see any intersectionality between policy and working as a tech executive or being CEO of Girl Scouts?
There are a lot of things with policy, especially right now with technology. Those things really matter a lot. How technology company can have actually more control than even our federal government on some issues. I think that's where I think policy has to really step up and to be a lot more current with what's happening. Also with privacy, we're all making a deal like, if I don't want to pay for that app, you get all sorts of information about me. But how much information and how much should you be able to track it at all times? I mean, that all opens up a huge can of worms, and I really do feel like policy has to catch up in that area.
Very, very true. Um, so I guess to kind of bring it back to um, young people and helping them secure jobs. So if you were a youth today, is there anything you would have done differently along your career path?
Well, I am really grateful that I had the experiences that I did. But and I wasn't afraid to do something non-traditional, which is like being an umpire, right? I would really encourage you, what are your interests, and go after them. And even if they're non-traditional, go after them. And if somebody says you can't do it, ask them why, so that you can solve for that. So if I was a young person today, I would definitely do that. And especially now with the internet, you can reach people all over the world. And that's just an amazing opportunity. So being persistent, resilient, figuring out how to get to a yes, those are important skills and great to learn them when you're young.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So you are extremely, extremely inspiring. Was there any point, throughout your career where you were kind of faced with a challenge that you maybe weren't sure if you could overcome it? Were there any mentors that helped you through it?
Yeah, there was several challenges. It was interesting when I graduated from Stanford. I thought, wow, all my peers with a graduate engineering degree immediately got great jobs, and I just could not break in. I actually broke in as a facilities engineer, which is managing office space and manufacturing space, and I used that once I got my foot in the door as kind of a stepping stone. But I did realize that people looked at me and didn't see technology executive. So I worked really hard to learn how to communicate that so that people understood it, but in a way that, um, you know, helped them reframe who I was and what I was capable of.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, especially when it comes to like finding your first job after kind of going through all these years of education, do you have any advice for young people that might not be exactly sure for what they want to do um, after college, or might be facing pressure to kind of go into a specific field?
So I think it's important to be persistent, but also resilient. And when you're in a job and you don't like it, hang in there for a bit and try to figure out, what are the things that you could do to really improve that or make it better for you. But, be honest with yourself and say, okay, why is this not a fit? How could it be a fit? Because that's really important. But no matter where you go, you're going to be working with people. So make sure that you work on that relationship part and learn how to work with others, learn how to manage others, no matter what job you're in. And I think that is a transferable skill. And then when you say, well, you know what, I don't think this industry is for me. I think I want to try and work in this industry. That time that you've spent in that job that wasn't quite right was still invaluable experience for you.
That's really great advice. And I've done my fair share of nonprofit work helping Girl Scouts earn their coding for good badges. And there's a lot that you learn just simply from learning how to manage high school volunteers and set up
Right.
workshops and teaching and communication skills. So even when it comes to just starting small, and kind of like you said, like just taking an interest, starting small, and just figuring out how you can learn some skills just from that, I think has made the biggest difference for sure. Um, so thank you so much. Those are all our questions.
You
Again,
bet.
thank you so much for volunteering your time. It's truly been an honor, and I've been excited about this all week. So I can't
Well,
wait to tell all my friends and family about this.
I just
Hi
wanted
there.
to say hello, Sylvia. We met during the Grace Hopper celebration when I was
Hi
working with
there.
Brenda at Anita B. So thank you for doing this. Sangeeta has been one of our amazing youth ambassadors. I started this organization last summer, focused on youth workforce, and they were challenged to reach out to interview somebody that would be a dream interview to learn about their first job experience. And you came through for Sangeeta and for us, so we really appreciate it.
Well, great. Well, I've got to get to another call, but you, Sangeeta, if you haven't read my book, Pats and Stars, you'll learn even more about me.
Yep, sounds good. Just requested it this morning, actually, at the library.
All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you. Good luck
Thank
to
you so
you.
much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Keep
Bye-bye.
me
Great
posted
chatting.
on your success.
For sure. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.